Welcome to another deep dive, and today we're exploring Islamic spirituality and self-improvement.
Yeah, and to do that, we'll be using a fascinating guide, Ranks of the Divine Seekers.
Written by the 14th century scholar Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah.
It's really interesting, we often think of self-help as a modern thing,
Right.
but Al-Jawziyah was already exploring all these themes centuries ago.
Yeah, totally. And what I like about his book is that it's not some kind of dry, inaccessible religious text. It's
Well,
really like a roadmap,
yeah,
for spiritual growth and living a more fulfilling life.
absolutely. And this deep dive is, I think, extra exciting because Al-Jawziyah draws a lot from another scholar, Al-Harawi,
Okay.
and he mapped out these spiritual stations,
Oh, I like that.
which are like milestones on your journey to a deeper connection with God.
So it's like we're setting off on this trek, right, across a vast desert.
Exactly.
We're aiming for the Kaaba.
Yeah, and Al-Jawziyah really stresses that it's about the transformation during the journey,
Mm.
not just reaching the destination. He actually says that our souls go through these stages, like commanding sin, lamenting sin, feeling remorse.
Right.
But tranquility with God, that's like the peak.
Oh, yeah,
You
okay.
reach that through effort and patience.
So it's not a quick fix. It's like this constant process of growth and refinement.
Yeah, exactly. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Al-Jawziyah even says that, like, if you truly understand your religion, it makes you reject disobedience.
Oh, interesting.
Not just to others, but also in yourself.
So it's about more than just avoiding bad deeds.
Yeah,
It's about cultivating this genuine inner purity.
precisely.
Even the desire to do the bad deeds
The desire itself.
is something to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. And he also talks about the challenges along the way.
Mhm.
He even mentions these brigands
No.
that can actually block good deeds from reaching your heart
Now, how does that work?
and hindering your spiritual growth. Yeah.
Like, how can a good deed be blocked from my heart?
Yeah. He gets into the specifics later on, but think of them as internal and external forces
Oh.
that are kind of distracting you from your spiritual goals.
So it's like a call to be really aware and constantly check your intentions.
Consistently check. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just enough to do good. We
Right.
have to understand why we're doing it.
But boy,
Are our motivations pure, or are we doing it for show?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to one of the most powerful tools on this path to growth,
Okay.
pondering.
Pondering. Mhm.
Al-Jawziyah has this beautiful description of contemplating the Quran.
Okay.
It's like a guided tour of the past, present, and future.
Oh, wow.
He says it illuminates your heart, deepens your faith, and reveals the reality of this world and the next.
Even if you're not Muslim, right?
Yeah,
You can think about reflecting deeply on a text that resonates with you.
that's it.
Like a poem, a philosophical work, even a song lyric.
That's the point. Engaging deeply with words that mean something to you
Right.
can spark those insights and guide us on our own unique journeys.
Okay, so we've got this image of the soul's journey, the importance of intention,
Yes.
and the power of reflection.
Right.
Now let's get back to those brigands.
Yeah, let's get back to those.
What are those things that can corrupt the heart?
Al-Jawziyah actually identifies 5 major corruptors.
5. Okay.
And his analogy is really striking. He says it's like a dung fire trying to blot out the sun.
Whoa, that's powerful imagery.
Yeah.
So what are these 5 dung fires that we need to watch out for?
Well, he lists excessive mingling, wishful thinking, attachment to things other than God, excessive eating, and excessive sleeping.
I mean, some of those definitely hit close to home, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Especially that excessive sleeping. But
Uh,
what about the others? What does he mean by excessive mingling?
should we all become hermits?
Yeah, exactly.
Not at all. It's all about balance
Right.
and intention.
Hmm.
He's warning against getting so caught up in socializing that we neglect our spiritual duties and our interconnection with God.
So it's not about isolation. It's about being mindful of how we spend our time and who we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely, yeah. And then he talks about attachment to other than God.
Right.
And that's nuanced too. It's not just about idols.
Okay.
It's about anything that we prioritize over our relationship with the divine.
I see.
Wealth, status, even relationships can become an attachment.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to check our priorities, like what really matters in the grand scheme of things.
That's a great point.
Right.
And this actually leads us to sincerity, which is central to Al-Jawziyah's teachings.
Okay.
He stresses pure intentions in everything, but especially worship.
Yeah, he actually shares a story of the prophet telling people to quiet down during prayer.
Right.
because God isn't deaf or absent.
Exactly.
So it's not a performance. It's really about connecting with something greater than yourself.
It's a powerful lesson, especially today with all this social media stuff going around.
Yeah, that's so true.
Are we doing good just for those likes and shares, or are we doing it for genuine inner virtue?
Ouch, that's a good point. It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
But seeking external validation, I mean, that doesn't lead to true spiritual growth, does it?
Al Jazia would definitely agree.
Yeah.
He constantly reminds us to check our motivation and ensure they're aligned with our spiritual growth,
Yeah.
not with worldly recognition.
Right. So speaking of things that can distract us from true worship,
Mm-hmm.
Al-Jazia goes into this really interesting debate within Sufism about music and singing.
Oh, yeah. It's a great example of how to balance personal taste with scriptural guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Some argue that music is totally permissible because it brings joy and God delights in beauty.
Okay.
But others condemn it as a distraction from true worship.
So it's not a clear-cut issue.
Right, and he actually quotes those who say that God even enjoys listening to a prophet with a beautiful voice when he's reciting the Quran.
So he's not shying away from presenting both sides.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But ultimately, he cautions against prioritizing personal preference over scriptural guidance, especially when interpreting religious practices.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually pretty critical of those who worship themselves
Ooh, that's harsh.
by letting their desires dictate how they understand their faith.
It's like a reminder to stay grounded, even in spirituality.
Absolutely.
Our egos can easily take over if we're not careful.
Yeah, he's saying true worship is about submitting to something greater than yourself,
Right.
not about bending the rules just to fit your preferences.
It's about seeking alignment with divine will,
Exactly.
not trying to manipulate it to suit our desires.
Yes, and that actually brings us to a very crucial
Okay.
but often misunderstood station on this path.
Oh, which one is that?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. I mean, that word can sound kind of negative,
It can.
but I feel like he's talking about a specific kind of fear, right?
Yeah, he distinguishes between different types of fear.
Okay.
Like awe, reverence, and dread.
Mm-hmm.
True fear of God comes from deep knowledge and understanding of his power and majesty.
I see. So it's not about being terrified. It's
Mhm.
about having this profound respect and recognizing our smallness in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. And this fear, it's actually a driving force,
Interesting. How so?
It motivates you to stay vigilant and to strive for excellence in your worship and actions.
It's like that saying, fear God and you'll fear nothing else.
Exactly. Yeah, and then he talks about hope in a way that might seem paradoxical.
Oh, okay. So you'd think fear and hope are opposites.
Yeah, you would.
But he's saying they actually work together.
Right. He points out that hope, well, it can definitely motivate us,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also, if we're not careful, be a form of opposition to divine will.
How so?
It's about hoping without clinging to specific outcomes.
Okay.
You got to trust God's plan,
Right.
even when it doesn't match our desires.
That makes sense. So it's about trusting that God knows what's best, even when we don't.
Exactly. And this actually leads us to this station of contentment,
Contentment.
which is finding peace by being satisfied with God's will
Okay.
and accepting whatever life brings,
But I feel like he makes a distinction between contentment and complacency, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. True contentment doesn't mean that you just give up on striving for good.
Right. So it's about finding that balance between acceptance and striving.
Exactly. You surrender to God's plan,
Hmm.
but you still actively seek to do good in the world.
Right.
And he really emphasizes that trusting reliance on God, he calls it the strongest of paths.
Wow. But that can be easier said than done, right?
Definitely.
Surrendering our worries and anxieties, that's not always easy.
It's not, especially when we feel like we need to be in control.
Yeah. But Al-Jazia gives us guidance on how to cultivate that trust.
Yeah, he does. He even explores this seemingly contradictory concept of asking.
Asking. Okay.
We're always told to pray for what we want, but he
Mhm.
argues that excessive asking
Mhm.
can actually be a sign of lacking trust.
Now that's interesting. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does, yeah. He says that frequent asking can be disliked by God. True reliance is about accepting God's will, not trying to bargain with it.
So it's about understanding that God already knows what's best for us, even when we think we know better.
Exactly. And this is where that concept of relegation comes in.
Relegation. Okay, so what is that?
It's about recognizing that we don't always need to ask for things.
Right.
It's about trusting that God will provide even without us explicitly asking.
I see.
We let go of our need to control every outcome
Mm-hmm.
and surrender to divine wisdom.
No, that's a concept I need to ponder on a bit more.
It's a deep one.
It kind of goes against a lot of what we're taught about prayer,
It does.
but it also makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah.
Okay, and then he also talks about ego, which is something he has really strong words about.
He does, especially when it comes to ostentation.
Ostentation, right? So he's talking about the dangers of performing actions just for show.
Exactly.
For,
Yes, and he has this thought-provoking statement about that.
What?
He says, giving up acting for the sake of others is ostentation, and acting for the sake of others is associationism.
whoa, now that's a real head scratcher.
It is.
He's really challenging us to examine our motivations, like really dig deep.
Yeah, it's like he's saying even when we try to avoid showing off, our ego can still be driving us.
Right.
And on the other hand, even seemingly selfless acts, they could be tainted by a desire for recognition.
Yeah, it really makes you stop and think.
It does. He wants us to be brutally honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Are our actions truly selfless? Or is there this hidden desire for praise?
It's like he's holding up a mirror and asking us to confront the parts of ourselves that we might prefer to keep hidden.
Yeah, and that self-reflection, that's crucial for growth.
Right.
It's about peeling away those layers of ego to reveal the pure, sincere intentions at the heart of true worship.
So we've explored the pitfalls of ego,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of sincerity, that complex interplay of fear and hope,
Yeah.
and even this idea of relegation. So what's the final piece of this spiritual puzzle?
Well, Al-Jazeera would say it's steadfastness and patience.
Okay.
The cornerstones of spiritual growth, he says. He actually quotes another scholar, Ibn Taymiyyah,
Okay.
who said, the greatest of miracles is remaining steadfast.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It speaks to the sheer willpower that's needed on this path.
It does.
You know, it's about persevering through those inevitable trials and never giving up on pursuing spiritual excellence.
He emphasizes that patience isn't passive. It's an active striving.
I see.
You're constantly pushing yourself to overcome weaknesses
Okay.
and staying committed to your goals.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. There will be moments of exhaustion, doubt, even temptation to give up.
Mm-hmm.
But Al-Jazeera reminds us that the rewards of perseverance, they're immeasurable.
Yeah.
It's about having faith that even when the path is challenging, it ultimately leads to spiritual fulfillment and lasting peace.
I'm sensing a theme here. Trust, surrender, perseverance.
There is a theme.
It all ties back to that desert journey we talked about in the beginning.
It does. It's all interconnected. And as we continue exploring ranks of the divine seekers, we'll see how each of these concepts kind of weaves together to form a complete picture of this spiritual path.
It's like assembling a complex puzzle piece by piece.
It is, yeah.
Wow, this is already giving me so much to think about.
I know, right?
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a quick break and then we'll dive into the next set of stations in our spiritual journey.
Sounds good. You know, this idea of trusting reliance, it leads us to another concept that Al-Jazeera explores.
Okay, which one is that?
He calls it relegation.
Relegation. I haven't heard that one before.
It's about, well, recognizing that we don't always have to ask for things.
Oh, interesting.
We can trust that God will provide what we need,
Right.
even without us explicitly asking.
Okay, so it's like taking that surrender and trust
Yeah.
to a whole other level.
level, exactly.
But doesn't that contradict the whole idea of prayer?
Well,
I mean, aren't we supposed to ask God for what we want?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that Al-Jazeera addresses directly.
Okay.
He says asking can be a sign of dependence, but it can also become a problem if it comes from a lack of trust.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between acknowledging our needs
Right.
and recognizing that God already knows them.
He does.
That's a pretty subtle distinction.
It is. It's subtle but important. He even says that frequent asking
Okay.
can actually be disliked by God.
Oh, wow.
He's emphasizing that true reliance is about accepting his will,
Okay.
not trying to bargain with it or manipulate the outcome.
So it's a reminder to let go of our need for control
Exactly.
and surrender to a wisdom that's beyond our own.
Or wisdom beyond our own, yeah.
Okay, so then that surrender leads us to...
Well, it leads to one of the most challenging,
Okay.
but also transformative stations on the path.
Okay, what's that?
Annihilation.
Annihilation. Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
It does. It does.
What are we talking about here?
It's not literal annihilation, of course.
Okay, good.
It's more about dissolving the ego,
Okay.
letting go of attachments to worldly desires,
Right.
and kind of merging with the divine essence.
So it's about transcending our limited sense of self
Yeah.
and experiencing a deeper connection to something much greater.
Exactly. It's recognizing that our individual identities, they're ultimately illusions.
Okay.
And true fulfillment, it comes from uniting with that divine source of all being.
But it's not a passive state of just letting go of everything, right? Yeah, he describes it as an active process.
Yeah, it's an active process of purifying ourselves,
Yeah.
refining ourselves, stripping away those layers of ego, attachments, desires that keep us separated from God.
This reminds me of that dung fire analogy.
Oh, yeah.
We're actively putting out the flames that are obscuring the light.
That's a great connection. And within this concept of annihilation, there's actually some debate about the different levels and how they're experienced.
Right.
Al-Harawi, who we mentioned earlier, he says that the highest level is complete immersion in union with God.
Okay.
But Al-Jawziyya, he offers a word of caution about this.
Really? Why would he discourage seeking that kind of complete union?
It does sound pretty blissful.
It does.
He argues that complete merging, well, it can lead to a loss of individual responsibility and moral accountability.
I see.
It's like, you still have a role to play in the world, right?
Right. So it's about finding that balance.
From that balance, yeah.
Between experiencing the bliss of union, but without losing our sense of self and our responsibility to act ethically in the world.
Exactly.
It's that paradox again.
It is.
Unity and distinction.
Yeah. It's like, we are drops in the ocean, and the ocean is in every drop.
I love that.
It's a beautiful analogy.
It is.
And we're navigating that balance throughout our lives, not just in spirituality.
So how do we cultivate this annihilation?
It is a challenging concept.
It is, without losing ourselves completely.
Right. Well, Al-Jawziyya emphasizes vigilance and self-awareness. You're constantly checking your intentions, purifying your actions, striving for excellence in everything you do.
He talks about disciplining our character with knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Making sure our actions match up with our understanding of divine will.
He also stresses severing attention to stations we've already passed,
Oh, that's interesting.
It's about not getting complacent.
Right.
Or attached to past achievements.
Stay humble.
Stay humble. Yeah, we're eternal students on this path.
There's always more to learn.
Always more to learn and experience.
Exactly.
He encourages letting knowledge run its course. Surrendering to the guidance of scripture and tradition. Without letting your personal preferences or biases distort your understanding.
Which is so hard in today's world.
It is, with all this information overload.
Right. Everyone's shouting their opinions.
He's reminding us to be discerning.
Right.
Question your assumptions. Seek guidance from those who have walked this path before you.
So it's not blind faith.
Not blind faith.
It's active engagement with the teaching.
Active engagement, yeah.
Always seeking a deeper understanding.
Exactly, and trusting that the more we surrender to the process, the more we'll be guided towards our true purpose and potential.
This brings up an interesting question.
Yeah, what is it?
What's the ultimate point of all this striving?
It's the point, yeah.
Is it just personal enlightenment, or are there like more practical implications?
Al-Jawziyya actually says that the goal isn't just about your own personal salvation. It's about benefiting the world.
Interesting.
He says we use our spiritual insights and virtues to serve others.
Oh, okay.
And to make a positive impact.
So it's not about escaping the world.
No.
It's about engaging with it.
Engaging with the world, yeah.
In a more mindful and compassionate way.
Exactly. He sees this outward expression as a natural extension of inner transformation. You embody the virtues you cultivate. And then you use them to create a more just and harmonious world.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
But how do we actually bridge that gap?
Yeah, how do you bridge that gap?
Between inner transformation and outer action.
He emphasizes knowledge and action. True spirituality isn't just about these mystical experiences or rituals. It's about living in accordance with divine will. As expressed through Islamic teachings.
So we integrate those teachings into our daily lives.
That's it.
Using them as a guide for our actions.
Yeah, he also stresses balance, though. He cautions against focusing so much on the inner world that you neglect your responsibilities to the outer world.
So finding that sweet spot.
That sweet spot, yeah.
Contemplation and action.
Exactly.
Inner peace and working for justice and harmony in the world.
It's not just about these grand gestures either.
It's the small, everyday choices you make. How you treat other people, approach your work, how you engage with life's challenges and opportunities.
Lending that same intentionality to all areas of life.
All areas, yeah.
Not just our spiritual practices.
He reminds us this integration is an ongoing process.
Right.
It's not about achieving perfection. It's about constantly striving for growth.
A journey of continuous learning, self-discovery, and service.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Embracing challenges as opportunities to deepen our understanding and refine our actions.
Exactly. He actually offers some practical advice on how to navigate all of this.
Oh, okay. What does he say?
He says, choose the right companions, seek guidance from wise teachers, be mindful of the environments that you surround yourself with.
I see.
He even delves into Islamic law,
Oh, that was interesting.
showing how specific practices and rituals can actually support your spiritual growth.
Okay.
And help you integrate your faith into daily life.
So there's a practical element to this. Absolutely. But he's also clear that those outward forms are just tools.
Right.
The true essence lies in cultivating inner virtues.
So things like humility, sincerity, patience, and trust.
Exactly.
Letting those virtues guide our actions.
That's it.
Infusing every aspect of our lives with purpose and meaning.
It's a journey that can lead to profound fulfillment and connection, with yourself and with the divine source of all being.
A journey worth taking.
Absolutely.
Even if it lasts a lifetime.
Even if it lasts a lifetime.
And maybe the greatest reward isn't reaching the destination.
Right.
But the transformation that we undergo along the way.
Exactly. That's where the real growth happens.
Speaking of transformation, Al-Jazeera also talks about certitude.
Oh, yeah, certitude.
Achieving unshakable faith and trust in God.
Unshakable faith.
He actually outlines 3 levels.
He does.
Knowledge-based, sight-based, and experiential.
So it starts with understanding the teachings, and then it moves to experiencing their truth firsthand. We go from intellectual understanding to deep inner knowing.
So we trust in what we can't yet see or experience based on the knowledge and guidance we've received?
He uses the example of the garden and the fire.
Okay.
We have knowledge-based certitude that they exist based on what's in the scripture.
Right.
But we'll only actually experience them in the afterlife.
So there's that element of faith.
Faith, yeah.
Trusting even when we don't have all the answers.
He argues that trust is essential for navigating life's challenges and staying steadfast on the path.
It's about having faith that even when things are difficult, God's plan is unfolding perfectly.
Perfectly, yeah.
Letting go of the need to understand everything.
That's a hard one.
It is, surrendering to the wisdom of a higher power.
And that surrender, it leads to this inner peace and tranquility that can't be shaken by life's ups and downs.
Finding that still point within ourselves, a place of unwavering trust. And connection with the divine.
A place worth seeking, even if the journey is long and difficult.
Because the rewards of certitude, those are immeasurable.
They are.
Peace, purpose, unshakable faith.
In the face of any challenge.
It's knowing deep down.
Deep down.
That we're never truly alone.
Yeah.
That we're always guided and supported by a loving and compassionate presence.
A loving and compassionate presence.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is. And that knowledge, it can transform our lives. It can lead to lasting joy, fulfillment, connection with the divine source of all being.
Okay, so we've covered relegation.
Yes.
The challenges of annihilation. The power of certitude. And the importance of integrating spirituality into our daily lives.
And how all of these concepts are connected.
Right. We've delved deep into Al-Jazeera's teachings. Finding wisdom and practical guidance for navigating life and the spiritual path.
We've been following those spiritual waypoints, those stations on that desert journey.
It really does feel like we're making our way across that desert.
It does.
Each station brings us closer to our destination.
Right.
But it's the journey itself that's truly transformative.
Absolutely. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the interconnectedness of these stations and how they build upon one another to reveal a complete picture of spiritual growth.
It's like assembling a complex puzzle.
It is, piece by piece.
I'm excited to see how it all comes together.
Me too.
Should we continue our exploration?
Let's do it.
As we've been going through all these stations, it's amazing how they all connect.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle. Each station's a piece.
And as we go through the journey, we start to see the bigger picture.
The bigger picture emerges.
Of spiritual growth.
Exactly.
And something you said earlier really stood out to me.
Okay, what was that?
The spiritual path isn't linear.
No, it's not.
It's not like this straight line.
Twists and turns.
There will be times of progress and setbacks and even like moments of profound insight.
Oh, yeah.
That just come out of nowhere.
It's like that desert journey, remember?
Right.
There are those oases of peace and clarity, but also those stretches of just barren landscape.
Right.
Those treacherous dunes.
Yeah.
You got to navigate carefully.
And it's in those challenging moments that the virtues we've been talking about.
So it's virtues, yeah.
Patience, steadfastness, trust.
They come into play.
They really come into play.
They do.
Those are the tools that help us keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Even when the path is tough.
They become like your compass and your provisions for the journey.
I like that. It's a good analogy.
And it's important to remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Right.
Every step we take, every struggle, every moment of surrender brings us closer to that ultimate goal.
It's about trusting that even when we feel lost, we're still being guided.
There's a wisdom there, bigger than us.
Right. And that brings up another interesting thing that Al-Jazeera talks about.
Okay, what's that?
Balancing reason and revelation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's been debated for centuries.
Not just in Islam, but across so many different traditions.
Faiths, philosophies.
So how does Al-Jazeera approach this balance?
Well, he acknowledges that reason.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool. But he points out its limitations, revelation through scripture, prophetic teachings. It offers a higher level of guidance.
So it's not about rejecting reason altogether.
No, not at all.
It's recognizing that there are some truths that we can't access through reason alone.
Exactly. And revelation can illuminate those truths.
I see.
And lead us to a deeper understanding.
It's like trying to understand...
Give me an analogy.
Trying to understand the beauty of a symphony.
Okay.
Just by reading the sheet music.
You need to hear it.
You need to hear it.
To really get it.
You need to experience it.
Right. Al-Jazeera, he cautions against relying solely on reason to interpret spiritual matters. He says it can lead to misunderstandings, distortions.
It's like trying to navigate a vast ocean
using
only a small rowboat.
You need a bigger boat.
You need something sturdier.
That can handle the storms.
Right, something that can guide you through the unknown.
Exactly. So it's about that balance.
Reason and derevelation.
To deepen our understanding and guide us.
And he actually gives examples.
Oh, yeah.
Of how this plays out in different areas of Islamic thought.
He does. In theology, jurisprudence, ethics.
Showing how they work together.
We work together, yeah.
Reason and revelation.
To create a more holistic understanding.
It's like weaving together different threads to create this tapestry.
Beautiful tapestry.
Of spiritual understanding.
And it's not static either.
No, it's not static.
It's constantly evolving, expanding.
As we deepen our knowledge, refine our practice.
It's a dynamic process.
Right, it's a process of growth.
Growth, yeah.
Transformation.
And it requires constant vigilance, self-reflection, willingness to let go.
Of our limited understanding.
Yeah, surrender to that wisdom of something greater.
It's about embracing the mystery.
The mystery.
The unknown.
Yeah.
Trusting that even when we're in those dark moments, there's a light guiding us.
Always a light.
This has been such an incredible journey.
Yes.
Exploring Al-Jazeera's ranks of the divine seekers.
Such a rich text.
But we've only scratched the surface.
Just the surface.
It's a text you can revisit again and again.
Oh, yeah.
And each time...
you discover something new.
You get something new out of it.
New layers of meaning.
It's a timeless guidebook for the soul.
It really is.
And as we close this chapter, I want to encourage you, the listener...
our listeners.
To take a moment and reflect.
Reflect on this journey.
What resonated with you?
Yeah, what stood out?
What lessons will you carry with you?
What inspired you?
And what new questions have been sparked within you?
What are you curious about now?
Remember, this deep dive isn't the end.
It's the beginning.
It's the beginning of your own exploration.
Your own personal exploration.
It's an invitation to keep seeking.
Keep seeking, yeah.
To dive deeper into the mysteries of the heart.
And to discover the wisdom of Islamic spirituality.
We hope this journey has been valuable for you.
We hope so.
Provided you with insights and tools.
Yeah, tools for your own path.
Your own unique path.
Whatever that path may be.
So, keep seeking. Keep striving.
Keep striving.
Keep trusting in the guidance.
That guidance is always there.
That's always available.
If you're open to receiving it.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time.
Fellow knowledge seekers.
Fellow seeker.
May peace and blessings be upon you.
Peace and blessings.